Arrays are used for holding data. An array is an indexed variable. Let's take a look at one-dimensional arrays. I'm going to first dim an array. By the way, just notice that here on the screen where I'm going to paste this code in the general declarations, that is to say outside the subs. If I paste it in there, you see where that line is under option explicit. When I paste that in, the line moves down. It's just a bit of an anomaly. That's fine. We've got a declaration of an array. That means it's going to hold strings. It's an index variable, and it can have an index from 1 to 3. And it's declared outside the command button. That means that if we were to create another command button, which we will do, then this array will be known to that command button as well. Let me define some elements of our array. We've indexed it from 1 to 3 according to the declaration here. So we've got 3 elements. So an array really saves us making up new variable names all the time. So it's accompanied with an index 1, which are separate entities. We might like to run this in a moment. It won't do anything, so maybe we should make another button to message box out one of the elements. I'll just, for example, message box out element 3. So I can take the design off, click the first button, and then click the second button, and so that will message box out the third element. We could message box out each element. We could do that using a for loop, and I'll try that. And now, if I click the first button, that should initialize the array, and then the second loop will print out the array to the screen. Another advantage of an array is that we can deal with them in a for loop. So, for example, if we wanted to tag a little bit onto the end of the array, each array that is, you see, we've got here, it loops through and just tags on, concatenates a bit of stuff at the end, and ultimately we'll print them out as well. So we'll click the first button to initialize the array, and then in the second loop this should do 2 things. It should loop around and add a bit onto the end, and then go on to message box out the resultant value. So if we click this, we will see the result of having the LTD concatenated. So you see the point of an array is that it's indexed, and it's very useful if we can loop through them. Notice how we've declared our array from 0 to 3. If we just got rid of the 1, from 1 to 3 I should say, if we just got rid of the 1, 2, then do you think that's exactly the same thing? It's not actually. It's got a value of 0, 1, 2, 3. So we could indeed have another element in our array with a 0 element. We've got 1 for free, if you like. So if we were to run it, you'll see that it works. What would happen if we put a breakpoint in here? Let's see if we can see anything. F8. Yes, that's very nice. You can see the arrays being initialized. And here, well, it seems a bit premature. It's going to do it. Company 1 is that, and company 2 is best image, and even though the line hasn't actually been executed. That's so basically we've got, by just indexing it without the first bit, we've got an element for free. Well, it's always good to have something for nothing, but if we we can actually stipulate that we're not allowed to have an element 0. Let me just stop this. Why would you not want to have an element 0? Well, the spreadsheet Excel, as you know, has cells 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. There's no spreadsheet element 0. So we usually try and make that correspond. Less error prone, I guess. Now the way to say that you're not allowed to have element 0 is like that. Then if you try and initialize element 0 here, it causes an error. Subscript out of range. And it tells us exactly that we're not allowed to have element 0. The two-dimensional array's got 2 indices. So we can talk about rows and columns of an array just as we can with an Excel spreadsheet. So there's a one-to-one correspondence, which is very nice to demonstrate. A 2-by-2 array within Excel can be demonstrated on the spreadsheet. As you can see it visually, it's 2 rows and 2 columns. So let's start off by if we just declare our array. And we'll declare it here in the general declarations. Might as well. You could put it inside, and it will only be known to that particular command button. Then we want to, I'm going to dim some counters, integer counters, which are used for specifying the row and the column. And we're to take the values from the spreadsheet and put them into an array. We're going to have a for loop, which is a loop inside a loop, as we saw previously when we were looping. We have an inside loop here, which is our column, so it's going to go from column 1 to 2, so it'll go across. And then for each time it does that, it'll do the rows, it'll go down 1, 2, 3, and should initialize this array 1 to 3. Let's see if that's working for the moment. Well, there's no complaints at the moment, but perhaps we'd like to message box out one of the arrays. So I'll put one of the elements. So if I'll put another button on the sheet, and what we'll do is, yes, it's just as well I did dim them in the general declarations. Then that company array will be known to both. So I need to choose which element. I could loop through all of the array and message box them out, but I'll choose to message box out one of them only for the moment. Message box. Now which one? Well, company something or other. That's not in the right place at the moment. I want to double click on my command button and place that in there. Just drag that in there, that's fine. Now I need to specify, well, let's find, say, this element here, two down and 2 across. So we could specify 2, 2, row 2, column 2. Let's see if that works. We can initialize our array. We didn't see much happening, but then when we do click the second button, you can see that that particular element is message boxed out. You might recall that we could have, instead of 1 to 3, we could have 0 to 3 and also 0 to 2. That would specify another free element, more than one. You'd have company 0, 0, company 0, 1, 0, 2, and so on. You'd get some array elements for free. But like I say, it's nice to keep the correspondence between the spreadsheet and the array. So we'll specify 1 to 2 and 1 to 3. You'll notice that the rows goes from 1 to 3 and the column goes from 1 to 2. We can make this more general if we use the U-bound. Now, it's the U-bound of what? It's the U-bound of the array. Just drag that into there. Now, the thing is, it's which dimension is it? Well, we're talking of the rows, so we're going across. It's the rows first is what we call the first dimension is the rows. So that the 1 indicates rows. And if we do the same thing for the other index, the upper bound of the other index, we'll copy that and paste that in there. This goes from 1 to 2. Well, it's the upper bound of the array, but it's the column. So we're going the columns from 1 to 2. So it's the columns, rows is the first dimension, and then columns is the second dimension. So indeed, we'll put a 2 there, and that should do just the same thing, initialize the array. We could check that out and just see that it's working by pressing the second command button. It gives me 2 2s, so no change there. Why would we bother doing this, putting U-bound here? Well, it's to do with future proofing, making things easier in the future if we wanted to change it. Indeed, if we wanted to change that index there, make that 4, then this would automatically take care of it. Be less stuff to change within your program. You can do the same sort of thing with L-bound as well. So we could make an L-bound in here, for example. It's the first dimension, and it's the L-bound, and that would also do the same thing. And we could also change this L-bound, but there's not a great deal of use in changing the lower boundary, more changing the upper boundary. Variant arrays. We say an array, of course, can hold variant types, but that's not what we're talking about here, because we're talking about a single variant variable that can hold a whole array. That really is quite amazing, actually. But let's just take we'll dim a variant. Now, which we've done here, you know that a variant can be an integer, a single, double, and so on. Everything. Well, why not be an array? And indeed, this variable now can be an array. Not only that, that an array can pick up a whole spreadsheet set of values. So if I try this, I can in one go. It really is quite amazing, actually. We've got this range B1 to B3, which is the highlighted range here, can be put into one variable, and then we can try accessing that one variable by using the array notation like this. So now you've actually made an array by the very fact that you've assigned this variable to that spreadsheet area. It's created for you a two-dimensional array, and that means you can use the ordinary array notation to access the elements. So we'll try that, and it should indeed message box out element 11, which is business systems.